What is shaking? It's your boy Marc Cordon, episode 86, Golden Mike Live. Jane Anderson. Jane Anderson, author of the book 30 Days of Character Strengths, a guided practice to ignite your best, is here today. We're going to be giving out a book. We're going to be giving out a book, not just a digital book. We're going to be giving out one of these like hard copy books, you know, like when you get to page through and touch the pages and stuff and feel it. We're going to be giving out one of those today. Oh, check it out. Maybe it might be that book. Maybe it might be that exact book. So if you're watching, pay attention, because we're going to be talking about strengths today. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Marc Cordon, positive psychology coach, founder of Make Money Coaching, founder of The Joy Revolution. We didn't even talk about The Joy Revolution launching, Jane. We're going to talk about it soon. But more importantly, I'm into the positive psychology. I'm into the positive psychology, which means this. Forget about all the empirical data. Forget about all the studies. We can talk that. But the biggest thing, or the biggest two things, is number one, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy do you feel today? How happy do you feel just as an emotion? And then number two, scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like you're living in purpose? When those things are both at 10, you don't need a positive psychology coach, baby. Just live your life. Just do your thing. Now, Jane, when we're living and flourishing, Jane's strength stuff can bring you to an 11. She can bring you to an 11. So we're going to talk about that. But Jane, I wanted to ask you this. You're a smart cookie. You're a smart cookie. You've also helped me through some times when it was a pretty transitional time in my life. And I want to ask you this right now. You finished your book. You're facilitating, you're coaching. Are you feeling good and living in your full purpose today?
Well, hi, Mark. And who wouldn't be with you across the screen from me? So I have to say at this moment, absolutely. It's got to be at least a 9 or a 10. And
boom!
Yeah.
Booyakasha! Okay, for those of you watching live, those of you watching on the replay, or those of you whose name might be Kathleen Lovenberry saying hi to Jane, I want to see you hit a button right now if you're feeling good and living life to your full purpose. And I want to see you give us some hearts. How do you beat those hearts up there in Chi-Town, Jane? How do you beat that heart? Oh, you've got a very... Oh, there you go. Oh.
This is how we do it in Chicago.
It's like a night out in Chicago, do it in unison. Now, here's the other thing, too. And Jane knows this because Jane really has guided me through the positive psychology research. For those of you who think that positive psychology is happiness 24/7, shits and giggles 24/7, every single day is Taco Tuesday, you have it completely wrong. It's not about being happy 100% of the time. It's about really embracing all of your emotions and knowing the ups and the downs and all arounds of life. And this is the thing. If you woke up today and you're like, hey, Cordon, hey, Anderson, like, I was happy. I was a 10 last week, and like, I'm not feeling it this week. I'm just not that happy today. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. That's a part of life. And this is another thing. If you've been living life to the fullest and you're like, man, that job at corporate has been amazing. It's treated me well. But for some reason, there's got to be something more to this. I have a greater purpose. And your purpose feels off today. And you can't answer that question. That too is part of life. Your heart is beating just like Jane and mine. So live your life. If it feels off, let that be part of your story in the future. When you come back around, just give us a thumbs up. Let us know that things are working for you. Let us know that you're enjoying yourself. And just enjoy this episode, because you don't need to be flourishing to watch us mess around today and talk about strengths. Now, here's the last one. When Jane, when you pushed me out of the nest and you let me fly, this is really what I got into. I got into growth and I got into hope, right? And for those of you, whether you're flourishing, you're at a 10, or for those of you, whether you're at a 1, if you just know that tomorrow You're optimistic that tomorrow is just going to be an even better day than today. It has nothing to do with today being a crappy day. You just know you're going to grow, you're going to learn from today, and you're going to be even better tomorrow. There's another button down there. There's another button down there for hope, and Jane's going to make the face with me. It's called the wow face. Jane Anderson, make the wow face with me. Ah! So, Jane, here we go. Here we go. We're going to talk about strengths. We're going to talk about utilizing those strengths. We're going to talk about maybe the misconceptions of looking at strengths, because I think a lot of people think that if you look at strengths, you have to forget about everything else. But even before we go there, what's your story, Mama?
Wow. Well, even before we go there, I just have to say, Mark, that I love what you're doing here. You are so in flow. We can see it, we can feel it. Even people on the recording who are going to be watching this later are going to experience your I just have to strength spot you for a minute, which is basically acknowledging and appreciating somebody's strength. Okay, is that
I
okay?
called it. I said this is called strength spotting.
There it is. It's called
Yeah.
strength spotting. So, Mark, I really see your zest. I know that you feel that this is a lower strength, but in these episodes, you call your zest forth so clearly and strongly. It really gives us energy. It energizes all of us. It makes me feel relaxed to see you so zesty and energized and vital in the work that you're doing. So thank you for that. I also see your humor, your lightheartedness, and your playfulness, which I think is a signature strength, actually. It's something that really defines the essence of you. And we can see that lightheartedness in you, and it helps us connect and bond and form strong collaborations. So I love that about this work with you. And then social intelligence and perspective. I hear you. Yeah. Um, Social intelligence is about noticing emotions and other people where people are. You meet people wherever they are. You do such a good job of understanding, where they are, so that you can kind of help lead them forward in this work, and I'm sure in your coaching work as well. And then the perspective that you put on things to help kind of bring it all together and form sort of an umbrella of wisdom. I just want to call you out in a positive way and thank you for on behalf of all of us for these strengths and your other strengths.
Wow. So that's called strength spotting. And before I even recognize that, Jane, we haven't talked that much in like the past month or so. So I've been working on this. I've been working on the art of receiving, which I think is on the other end of strength spotting. I think when people would strength spot in the past, I would use my strength of humor, but I would not use it necessarily as a strength. I'd use it to deflect someone's, like someone would say something like you just said, and I would deflect it. I'd say, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then I'd say something funny to try to not receive that. So I've been really working on the art of receiving. So Jane, coming from you, like that means a lot. And I am totally spotting like the fact that like you're always perceptive, you're always giving. You've always been like that ever since I've seen you. So like it is truly an honor to have you on the show. Now, I am not letting you get by without answering this question. What is your story, Jane?
What is your story? No worries. So I love what you said about the ups and downs of life that we all have. That positive psychology isn't about just happyology and trying to be smiley and happy 24/7. That's just not real life. And we need to acknowledge that and name it. We all have things that we wish to change or improve or get through in our lives. And I'm no different. I actually experienced all of these things simultaneously a number of years ago. I found myself as a single mom, and I was uh, working in my own business, so that was very challenging. And life was tough in many ways. And then it got tougher because cancer struck, and not once, but twice. And the second time I went through cancer, I had a lot of time. It was a long year of treatments and so on. And I had a lot of time to think. And it's kind of funny, not funny, haha, but ironic how life kind of gives you what you need at the time, even though it doesn't feel that way at the time, which it didn't. But in hindsight, it really gave me the needed rest and break that I needed to take because I was feeling burned out. I felt very depleted. I wasn't engaged in my work, even though I was doing my own thing at the time. It was a time of real challenge for me. I wanted changes in my life, and I knew that I wanted to thrive. I discovered this during that time, but I didn't really know what that meant or how to take action, how to move that forward. When you think about it, how can I thrive? I mean, it's really kind of a hard question to answer,
Huge.
but we ask it of ourselves all the time. My life was sort of on autopilot, and I wanted to, take it off of that. And at that time, again, another sort of life event for me. Someone close to me suggested that I read the book from Martin Seligman, who's considered one of the founding fathers of positive psychology. His book entitled Flourish. And that's kind of a starting point into positive psychology for many people. And I read this, and I read all about character strengths and signature strengths and resilience and hope and the work that they do with the Army on building resilience and so on. And it just captured my attention. So I read a little bit more. I read Sean Acor's book, The Happiness Advantage. I read a little bit more and more and more. And finally, I discovered that I wanted to get some formal education in positive psychology, which is when I enrolled in Whole Being Institute's certificate program, a year-long program in positive psychology. We abbreviate as SIP, Certificate in Positive Psychology, which is where I met you, Mark.
That's right.
And I've met so many other incredible people through that wonderful program. And there was a time in the beginning of this program that was very pivotal for me. There were two, actually. One was when we were at the first immersion, which is a face-to-face, as you know, week-long study opportunity in person with the faculty, lectures and group work and so on. And we were asked to think of an example of when we were at our best. And it could have been an accomplishment that we had or a moment of connection with someone, anything big or little. And then name the strengths that helped us in that situation. And Mark, it sounds like such an easy question, but what I discovered was that was a hard question for me. I didn't have the language to describe that. I didn't have the awareness to understand that about myself. I hadn't really stopped very much in my life. I was sort of on autopilot, like I mentioned, and hadn't taken the time to really stop and reflect and go deeper with who I am and what I do, who I am when I'm at my best, and how to call that forth more strongly in the different parts of my life. And I remember feeling sort of sad that I could think of a lot of things that I wanted to change or improve about my life, but I had a hard time naming, who am I at my best? And not everyone feels that way, but a lot of people that I talk to do feel that way, that it's difficult for them to think about who they are at their best. It feels uncomfortable. It's awkward. They were raised not to, it's viewed as boastful and bragging. That's actually one of the misconceptions that you mentioned earlier. We could talk about in a little bit. But I was able to work through that, and I became so enthralled with the research that I found about strengths and how they help us improve our well-being and achievement and engagement and satisfaction at work and vitality and relationships. And so it's, for me, it's kind of like, like that wow face. That was a wow for me. And I wanted more. I wanted to know more. I wanted to do more. I wanted to share it more. And so it kind of fast forward to the end of the course, we were asked to do a final project, as you know, choosing a topic of our own choosing. And the topic I chose was strengths. And that was kind of a launching pad for me. From there, what I learned, I knew, this is part of my meaning and purpose and work going forward, is to learn and grow and help others share the wisdom and spread this goodness that comes about from our character strengths with others.
Yeah, and we worked together for months, and Jane, you are a pretty lit up person. But when it came to that week or couple days when we talked about character strengths, like you were especially lit up. And that's one of the great things when um you start strength spotting, is that like you can almost just see somebody light up, right? When their strengths are coming out. The thing that I also love about this exercise, and for those of you watching live or on the replay, do the exercise. Like, think of an example of when you were at your best and name the strengths. The thing about that is that these are an aspirational strengths. It's like, I want to be better at, hope. I want to be better at wisdom. No, there's actually been times where you've already utilized strengths. You've already been at your best. And that's what I love about this exercise, is that, you're forced to reflect instead of just always looking forward and just aspiring for strengths. You already have some strengths that you possess. And that's what I love about that exercise.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful way of saying that, Mark. And I want to just pop in and mention strengths in general. There are all types of strengths that we have, right? A lot of people sometimes get confused about this type of strength or that type of strength. So let's just name them, right?
Okay.
There are talents. There are talents that are things that we can develop into proficiencies. There are interests, which are things that we're excited about, that we love to do. Um, there are skills that are things that we're proficient in. And then there are character strengths. And these are who we are. This is about who we are when we're at our best. And also, they're like capacities, they're traits that we have. And there are actually 24 of them that span the globe. They unite humanity across time, across religions, across geographic locations. So these have been studied and found that these are common traits globally. And so just give a couple examples of some of these traits. For
Yeah.
instance, creativity, critical thinking, perspective, which I mentioned earlier, perseverance, love, kindness, social intelligence, the zest, the gratitude. There are 24 of them. I could talk about each one of them for an hour probably.
Yeah, you're good. And you have, and you already do in your book. Yeah.
And I do in my book, exactly.
Yeah. So how did it come to 24? Because like you see other like strengths things out there, right? How did how did this particular positive psychology character strengths um come like get wheedled down to 24?
Hmm.
um, because it does sound like an interesting number, but then also at the same time, there's like other strengths, things that are out there that are like it's like 20 strengths. So
Right.
why are there inconsistencies there? Like, do they define strengths differently? What's the
Well,
deal?
so this is the science is constantly changing and growing. I'll say that first. And the short answer, I think, to your question is that um, the way these came about is that in the 1990s, um, a number of scientists, many scientists were, well, let me back up for just a minute. For thousands of years, we humans have cataloged what's wrong with us, right? Illnesses, mental and physical illnesses. You see those codes on your medical statements that are the diagnosis codes. They're part of a system called the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, right? So this is all of the known physical and mental illnesses, the things that go wrong with humans. And in the 1990s, scientists started asking, well, what's right with humans? What is good about human life? And how can we cultivate that goodness and live the best lives possible? So they set out to study this, and they gathered a team of over 55 scientists that got together for over 3 years. And they looked at articles and writings from ancient philosophers and at religious doctrine. And they looked at articles and studies over time. And they traveled the world to remote parts of the world and spoke with people in all of these different places. And the result is this set of 24 character strengths that are then organized into 6 different virtues.
So it really was this cross-disciplinary study with multiple researchers involved. It wasn't like arbitrarily naming things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is a measurement tool to assess these strengths, and it's called the Survey of Character Strengths. It's a free survey that's available on the VIA Institute of Character. That's VIA, stands for Values in Action. Institute on Character, their website, which is viacharacter.org. It's a free survey. Over 6 million people have taken it. And one of my goals in life is to extend that number. There are 7.5 billion people on the planet now. So that's a lot of people that haven't taken the survey yet. How do we get it out there, Marc?
Well, I mean, I'm part of the movement myself. Everyone who goes through my coaching programs, take it. We just put the link up there. I don't know about you, but I created my VIA Pro. So anyone who comes through and just wants to interact can take that. And also the book that you inspired, I talk about the VIA. So everyone is doing their part. We gotta get those extra 1.5 billion. Is it only available via the internet?
Pardon me?
Is it only available through the internet, or is there a paper version available?
It's available online, and you can go and go to the website, click on the button that says free survey. You create an account for yourself, so it's confidential. And it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to take. And then you get free results, which you can download. It's a ranked list of your unique profile of character strengths. So each one of us has our own unique profile. My top strengths are different from yours and different from, it's virtually mathematically impossible for any one of us to have the same profile as any other person. It's kind of mind-blowing. That's kind of a wow to me.
It's pretty cool. We're like a unique strength snowflake.
We are. I love that. I'd have to write that down.
So I did want to ask you, there's 24 strengths, right? And just for clarification purposes, you said this is who we are. And it's been studied cross-culturally, across history. Does this mean that we possess all 24 strengths? Like each person possesses it, it just expresses itself in, different powers, is that what you mean?
Yes, we all have all 24. 24 is a lot. So some of the strengths on the top are called signature strengths, and these are the ones that feel most core to who you are. These are the signature strengths, are the strengths that we express quite easily and naturally across all of the domains in our life. So with family, at work, in volunteer roles, with friends, in all the settings we live, we tend to express them quite naturally, easily. They give us energy. Um, we we feel at our best when we're using them. We actually do use them each day, and they can be developed. So the good news is that for the strengths that are a little bit lower on the list, maybe strengths, 20 through 24 or 18 through 24, a lot of people seem to tend to think that these are weaknesses. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a misconception of character strengths. These are strengths. We might not tend to use them as naturally or easily as signature strengths, but they're there for us. So, in the general population, many of us have in our lower 24, in the lower four, even self regulation,
Mm-hmm.
prudence, even perseverance. So, a lot of times people will sort of laugh when they see self regulation at the bottom. I have all of those in my bottom few and say, oh, yeah, I don't really have that much self discipline. And if we didn't have self regulation, we wouldn't have a habit of brushing and flossing our teeth.
Yep.
Or we wouldn't be able to get out of bed every day at the same time and go to work. Or, these strengths are things we have and use each day, and we can also use them sort of strategically, really, to help us achieve new things and to help us overcome obstacles and to help us connect with people and generate meaning and
Yeah.
so on.
And in your book, um I like how you describe the idea that like um for example, like zest is not necessarily a strength that is in my character strengths. I actually think that I might be able to take this again, and it probably would have bumped up. Um, that's part of living our life, right? Our character strengths will move up now, right? And I personally think that if I'm not living life like with zest, like if you take zest away from me at this point, it feels like I'm not Marc anymore. And I think that's what
Oh,
makes a character strength, right? The top piece, those character strengths, isn't that what makes the character strength? Is that it's really the quintessential essence of who you are in all domains. Is that
yeah.
right?
So I'm hearing you say that for you now, zest feels like a signature strength. That if
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, I don't know how much it changes, but
Yeah, so it can change. Mostly they're relatively stable. Typically, you won't see your top strengths moving to the bottom and vice versa, but there
yeah,
can be shifts within. If you were to take the survey a year from now, or if you took it a year ago, you can see shifts within your results. And especially when life changes a lot with marriage or death or illness or significant changes, those kinds of things
yeah.
can affect results as well.
Now,
Um,
Jane, I wanted to. I don't have my VIA, but I have the derivation of, or not the derivation of it. I have the VIA me, which shows. It'll show you what when you go to the VIA site, VIA character. Take your free character strength assessment. Let me see if I can get this so you can see it. Essentially, what you'll get is something that looks like this. It's much easier to read, but Jane, can you see that? Is it too
um,
small?
I can't read the words, but I
I'll see
can
if I can
see.
pull it up even more right now, or just put it. So
You can guide me through. I can see
yeah,
that
so
your top
basically,
strength up there looks like
yeah, so
humor.
basically, this is what I took. This is what I took about 6 years ago, and in blue, this is. Oops, sorry. In There you go. Can you see it now?
Uh, Same.
Oh, good.
You
It's
you
all
can
good.
lead me through.
Talk through
I'll
it. I'll talk.
follow.
Yeah. So in blue here, I believe this is what you were talking about with the character strengths, because for me, what they have up here is, oh, I lost it. I'm trying new stuff with you here.
Hey, this is so I just want to stop here and say this is a little bit about bravery, the character strength bravery. You're demonstrating that by trying
Yeah, I'm
something
going
new
to new areas,
and
right?
persistent, perseverance.
I
There are
am.
some
Thank you.
obstacles and you're persevering anyway. You're going forward anyway. So examples of how we use this in our daily lives.
Yeah. So okay. So here are the 24 character strengths and how they show up for me, right? And the blue, which are these top ones that are kind of popping out at 5, are creativity, humor, perspective, appreciation of beauty, love of learning, judgment, and curiosity. So what does this? This is what you were talking about with character strengths, right? This
With
top blue.
signature strengths.
Oh,
Yeah.
signature strengths. I'm sorry.
Signature strengths. Yeah. So it's like our signature. These are typically, and this is something that you need to explore, Mark, and we each need to, this is part of our own individual strengths journey that we need to explore what these results say and
Mhm.
understand them, understand how these work together in our lives, how we can use them more often and in new ways, and how we can align them with our work. And
Yeah.
mhm.
So I think that one of the things that showed up was that when I was at the particular point I was at work, there was absolutely no humor being brought
Ah,
to work, and like for that to be that important to me and not to bring humor to work was a very interesting thing, and it started the wheels clicking that maybe there are some places that I can work at and use my character strength of humor on a daily basis. Gina, love this. I love this. Gina, go to the viacharacter.org and you can do your own.
hi,
It's good to
Gina.
see you here, Gina. Now, what the first thing I got to tell you, the first thing that I do, it's part of my negativity bias, is I go right down to the bottom here,
Yeah.
and I look at all of these purple things, and I'm like, okay, this is where I don't have strength, and this is where what I need to work on, right?
Uh-huh.
So perseverance, bravery, spirituality, self-regulation, and prudence. So the first thing I think is like, oh, I guess I'm not spiritual. I guess I'm not self-regulate. I don't self-regulate. What does this bottom part actually mean? Because even though I've been taught it a million times, I still jump there.
Yes. Yeah. It's such a great point, Mark, because most of us do, right? We have this, you mentioned the negativity bias. We
Yeah.
have our brains are actually wired to process negative experiences more thoroughly, and the positive ones are more fleeting. They, um, Rick Hansen from Stanford calls it negativity is like Velcro in the brain. It's sticky and it
Mm-hmm.
stays there longer. It stays with us longer. And positive experiences are like Teflon, they slide, they're more fleeting. So it really means that we need to more intentionally cultivate, not ignore the problems or what's
Yeah.
wrong or challenges or dismiss them or try to lessen them, um, but to also cultivate intentionally positivity. And this is where character strengths can play a big role. So to go back to the point about the lower strengths, these are not weaknesses; they are
Right.
strengths. They can be underused and overused, which can become cause conflict and stress for us. And sometimes, people can make a leap to, this is a weakness for me, but really it could be an overuse of a strength or an underuse. So, for instance, perseverance, right?
Yeah.
Perseverance in a balanced way helps us get things done. People who have that as a signature strength, they're the go-to people for getting things done, right? We can learn from them. We can see how they do it. They overcome obstacles pretty easily. Um, and the overuse of that perseverance can result in leading us to become sort of perfectionistic.
Hmm.
right? And then the underuse of perseverance can lead us to not really get things done that we need to accomplish.
So there really
So,
is a sweet spot of it, you know.
yeah, there's an optimal range where there's actually benefit. When you're experiencing benefit while being in your strength, that's like the strength zone. That's where you want to be.
Yeah,
That's where you want to live.
I like Gina who's popping up. I want my sixth grader to take this.
Yeah. Yes, you can. There's one for kids on the VIA website, viacharacter.org. There's a survey for them. So please do. It's becoming more integrated into education, um,
Absolutely.
into the
It's so
workplace, into many different domains, medicine even, and religion, and
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Now, and also at the same time, this was 6 years ago when I felt stuck in a job. The funny thing is that I'm looking at perseverance, bravery, spirituality, and self-regulation. And those, I consider those in my business one of the top, like some of the top strengths that I need to evoke, like on a daily basis. I need to evoke perseverance, you know.
Yeah.
And you know what? I realized that up to this weekend that I was overusing perseverance. I hadn't taken a, I mean, Jane, you saw once I started running with the coaching and the positive psychology, you were there from the beginning. Like I didn't really stop. I kept going through hurricanes and stuff. Like, and I actually took my first 3 days off this weekend, and I realized that I was overusing that. Like I couldn't shut off that part for a little bit.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Exactly.
also in terms of putting myself out there, the sort of bravery, you know. I do not consider these, like every time I talk to you, it just resets me to remember that these things can be pulled out at any time, you
Yeah.
know.
So
Um,
is there a way that how did you, is this something you're realizing in hindsight, or did you pull yourself out of there thinking, oh, I'm overusing perseverance, I'm underusing bravery? Is this upon reflection? Is this sort of a
well, I think
insight?
to be quite honest, like if someone were to ask me without saying character strengths wise, like Mark, what has been the number one change with you in the past couple years? Like my uh like zest has been much more expressed. My humor has been much more expressed, kind of coupled together.
Mhm.
Um and uh and my bravery, like just asking courageous questions to my clients, or not really saying like really just kind of being it's an overused term, but kind of being more authentic Mark, right?
Mhm.
And like it wasn't something that I was really used to, and so to really put myself out there and say, hey, we're doing the joy revolution, come with me, it's scary, but also at the same time, like I feel like it's necessary in order to, move positive psychology forward. So,
Yeah.
I think that, especially given the fact that in the Joy Revolution right now we're going through character strengths, I'm
Mhm.
thinking about my own, and I have been thinking lately, and knowing you'd be on the show, I did go over, I did think about what are the things that changed the most in me over the past couple years, and also at the same time, my family dynamics have changed, and it's been important for me to be able to step up, and so that sometimes looks like bravery, you know. Um,
This is such a cool discussion because it points out that there are numerous ways of going about exploring these. And one is reflecting on when you've used them in the past.
mm,
When
yep.
have I used bravery in the past, and coming up with your own examples of when you've been brave or when you've seen other people be brave. And maybe even examples of when you tend to under or overuse them, as you just did for yourself. You're sort of strength spotting yourself in a way. And then learning from that, learning and growing. And then the second part is based in research that when, especially signature strengths, when we use them in new ways and more often, and when we align them with our work, we see all these great benefits: reduce anxiety, reduce depression, greater work satisfaction, seeing work as a calling. There's lots of research on the VO website that points to these different benefits. But more importantly, when we put them into action intentionally, when you explore and learn about your own strengths and then think about them in your daily life, in your routine, whatever your routines are, what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to navigate, it's in a nutshell, it's how can our strengths help us to rise and thrive?
I love it. I love it. Now, let me ask you this, and this is just a softball question, but I want you to talk about it. I love phasic strengths. What are phasic strengths?
You crack me up, Mark. A phasic strength is not a signature strength, so it's in the middle or lower portion of your profile that you tend to call forth very strongly in certain situations. And so in you, I heard you name a few potentially phasic strengths.
Mm-hmm.
So one phasic strength that many of us have is bravery, because typically we're not typically brave all the time. We don't need to be, but we can rise to the challenge when we need to. Right? You just described it, being brave and honest as you were as unfolding as a coach and in your work. Some other obvious examples are when we see people in distress, we go to their aid. Our bravery rises.
And I love how in your book you talk about as a phase, like you talk about does a fireman need bravery when they're eating a sandwich?
Right.
And that could be a phasic strength, right?
Right, exactly. For me, one of my phasic strengths is prudence, which is number, 20 or something like that. It's very low on my list. And I've been acknowledged for prudence a lot in my work. Prudence being that we're very planful and careful, not overly careful in the sense of not taking risks, but planning things out. So when I run a meeting, I do a lot of prep work for it. I send out an agenda. I let people know how they can best participate, what we're trying to accomplish, and so on. And people appreciate that because it helps things run smoothly and on time. They let me know this. And interestingly, I don't view myself as being very prudent. In fact, in my home life, I rarely get called out for prudence.
What are you, big old punk rocker at home there, Jane? If punk rock was a strength, would that be your signature?
Yeah, my signature strength is punk rock. Hey, that's pretty cool. I like that. So I in a way, I used to view it as no, I don't really have that strength. So part of that negativity bias. But other people see it in me, and this can be, our strengths can come with blind spots. Right? Other people can see strengths in us that we don't see in ourselves. And so that's one of the misconceptions of strengths, is that we automatically, know who we are and so on. And it's actually helpful to not only see strengths in ourselves, but to take into account the views of other people, because their opinions matter. Who we work with, their views of us matter. Who we live with, their views of us matter. And when they see strengths in us that we don't notice, it's important to at least consider and explore that.
Yeah, I love that. And so I'm going to type this up right now because I think that's one of the biggest things. The idea of strength spotting, it is so, I wouldn't say simple, but it is so like matter of fact. Like, what, you just want me to observe and then tell somebody what it is that I see. And you know what, to be quite honest, like at first when I started doing strength spotting, when I was telling people the strengths that I saw them exhibiting, it's almost like some people would be like, hey, thank you. Other people would be like, what is that, a backhanded comment? Right? Because it's so not used, but it is interesting to put it into our language and to not only put it into our awareness, but also to put it into other people's awareness. So like, when I just saw you talking about sort of honesty and sharing your perspective, right? And sort of the social intelligence, right? That's something that I'm spotting as you were just talking about strength spotting and stuff like that. I would, Gina, Renee, Kathleen, those of you watching in the replay, give it a shot. Go and just, all you got to do is really download or go to the viacharacter.org, check it out. Or I'm going to talk about Jane's book in a second. It's freaking awesome. Like your book basically gamifies strengths, and I love gamification and I love strength. So that's freaking awesome. But like there are these tiny little hacks that you do. And the next thing you know, you're sitting there in a moment and you're like, how can I use, like, for example, how can I use my creativity to really get me out of a precarious situation, or, I've been overusing humor at this funeral, maybe I should not use it, like you get sort of this nice little balance of things, by the way, yeah, Zest was here a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So
That's
it might
where
have
my
been
Zest
Faison
was.
at that time, it moved
Yeah.
up. Mhm.
And I think even people who don't strength spot, like, I'll go to a networking meeting or something, and that's the first thing that people always will see. I don't think they call it zest, they call it energy, or they call it joy, right?
Mhm.
But I consider that zest for life.
Yeah, yeah. So I want to talk about strength spotting if I can for just a minute.
Absolutely.
You're so right. It's so foundational, and it's really an intuitive, natural process that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And in spite of saying that, as you mentioned, as you called out, there are people who feel very uncomfortable with that. They don't know. This isn't always a common practice. We're not always used to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that this is a practice that is almost always wanted and needed. It's a break from what's wrong in our days. And it's very connecting. We can brighten other people's days very unexpectedly sometimes. Um, there was a call that, just as a quick example, there was a call I was on for a webinar, and the tech person was uh, frantically trying to troubleshoot a lot of tech issues. And so I strength spotted her and named a few strengths and said, that it helps me to see her in action, her strengths in action, because she's troubleshooting all these problems so easily. And it makes me feel more comfortable and less nervous about, going forth with the webinar and the technology, and put me at ease and so on. And it got really quiet. And she thanked me. And later that day, she emailed me and thanked me and said, my day was it was a really rough day up to that point. I really appreciated you saying that. It changed the rest of my day.
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
It can be.
And then when it's happening on the reg, that means on the regular, you guys. So when it's happening regularly, it's not only something that you expect, but it really is, like, it doesn't have a diminishing return when someone identifies your strengths. It always is a nice little, I guess, dopamine rush. It's a nice little hedonic feeling, but it's a great eudaimonic feeling as well. So feeling good and the feeling good functioning well, y'all. So like it makes you feel happy, but it also helps you understand like who you really are at your core.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
We feel seen and like valued for who we are. This is like who we are in our core.
It really is. And after people have strength spotted a lot of the zest, for example, with me, like I think a part, like that's why I started practicing the law of receiving, like receiving these compliments, receiving the strengths that people are spotting. Because I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. I'm the quiet nerd that like reads in the room. No, like I'm excited about the things that I do. And I like that it might be contagious for some people, you know. Um, and let's go back to Gina. Gina, you're connecting. You're connecting. I love it. Gina's asking, she would love to see how strength spotting and zone of genius relate to each other. So,
Mm,
so Gina, do you want to talk a little bit more about zone of genius?
yeah.
I think I'm gonna do the best that I can if you've tuned out, but like sort of zone of genius being sort of our very best selves. How does strength spotting and us living at our fullest potential, like maximum capacity, at our optimal self, those positive psychology terms, how do those two things coincide? That's a
Yeah,
great question.
I think they do overlap,
Mhm,
because when we're in our strength zone, we are typically putting forth our best. This
mhm,
is who we are at our best. And in terms of best self, best future self, or ideal self, there's sort of a future component to it. And character strengths can be pathways for us to help us navigate life toward becoming our best. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. It makes total sense. I mean, I think that if this is a Venn diagram, how can you truly be in the zone of genius without being aware of what your character strength or your signature strengths are? Um, and
Yeah,
even and even more than that, uh, so there is a personal strength spotting, and to surround yourself with people who are strength spotting. Gina, think about like if we're constantly around people who are strength spotting with us and we're strength spotting with them, where we built it into the culture. Freaking awesome.
right. So places where strength spotting can happen, it can happen just spontaneously as you see someone
Yep.
uh, in their zone and you want to just appreciate them and call it out. There can be a ritual around the dinner table where you strength spot each other. What went well today? How did your strengths contribute? And strength spot each person. I like to start off coaching sessions with a what went well and then strength spotting that. The coachee starting a staff meeting or a project meeting with, okay, what's going well? And then how did our strengths contribute to what's going well, and spotting the strengths of the team members. Um, Lots of different ways of calling out people's strengths.
Yeah, and I do see an opportunity there for you, Gina, because you and your sixth grade daughter are both taking this, and now that you're taking this and you're getting aware of the 24 strengths, how cool would it be for you both to work in strength spotting when you're seeing each other, your sixth grader, and when she's seeing you in your zone of genius?
Actually, that if I
Freaking
could do a
awesome.
sort of a shameless plug for my book at this point, because I am hearing from people who are saying that they're using a book. It's 30 days of strength-based activity. They start out simple. It starts out with actually taking the survey, and I
Mhm.
wrote this as a bridge to help people who take the survey to then know what to do next. It's 30 days of activities. The first week of activities is about exploring strengths. The second week is all about strength spotting. The third week is about developing strengths. And the fourth week is about putting them into action and living them. And then there's 2 extra days. There's one of reflection and then one of taking them forward. So people are actually doing these in groups of friends and with their children and with coworkers. And I'm hearing that it's been a really fun practice. They've been able to go deeper into their knowledge and awareness of their strengths. They're using them more often. And so I'm thrilled about that.
Well,
sharing
I'm
the
thrilled that you're
wisdom.
thrilled because I remember when we were both in writing mode, and some days we're not thrilled when we're writing. And to see
Right,
that this thing is on Amazon, to see that you're going to be possibly giving one away today, to see that you're holding, how does it feel to hold your book? How does that feel, right? And then the cool thing I love about it is not only are you uh, like we knew you, like the people in our group, we knew you as the strengths expert, you know, and now to see your expertise really going out there on a much larger platform, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you. I mean, talk about passion going into action, and I love the fact that the fourth week, the final week is really about taking these things and routinizing strengths into your
right.
daily life. Because if for those of you who missed the very beginning of the show, the beginning of the show was that the research is all there. The research is all there. Your satisfaction with life skyrockets when you're utilizing your strengths. And then I'm suffice to say, I would say that if you're not using your signature strengths in all domains, this is just anecdotal, but like you could sometimes feel like you're either settling or you're striving or it's not you. It's just not who you are.
And it's
And
actually one of the biggest growth opportunities. The biggest potential for growth and proficiency can lie right there in using those signature strengths more often and in new ways.
okay, okay. So Jane, do you still want to give out this book?
I do. I would love to.
Okay, so this is the challenge, y'all. I'm gonna do 24 hours. We're gonna do 24 hours. Folks, leave comments in here for the next 24 hours. I'm gonna randomly choose somebody. Jane, if I don't know if you're gonna send it from your publisher or you're gonna send it from your own spot, but oh look, and all of a sudden they start posting. They want that book. But Jane, I don't know if you're where you're gonna send it from, but if it comes from the publisher, obviously you can't put a little bit of ink on it. But I think it would be great if you autographed it. It's always
Oh,
great getting a
I'll
personal.
submit to that right now. I'd
That is
love to
freaking awesome.
do
That
that.
is freaking awesome. I'm gonna pick. I read the first part of your book. I'm gonna pick up the whole dang thing now before it sells out. So, and for those of you who are watching in the Beyond Resilient Underground, we might do a full month of strengths challenges to just get things going. Maybe we'll give out a couple more books. Anderson, I'd love to have you back to do that if that'd
Love
be
to
something
come
you're
back.
interested in. Let's jump on a call and let's talk about that a little bit more. Jane, I've said this to you a million times, but I'll never let you get by without it. Like it was just when you came into my life, it was such a huge transition period. I feel like I don't call it a low in my life, but like there was a lot of things there was a lot of moving pieces. And for a person that was there, that was strength spotting and supporting on a regular basis, like I feel like you unleashed um, this greater self that I always wanted, but I was too timid to go after. And I think it's because of you that in some areas, like I recognize that my bravery has needed to spike in order to make those leaps of faith and just believe in myself. And I've seen you do that for multiple people. I've seen you do it for the AHA group. I see you doing it with Gina and Renee and the folks in this group. So I, I can never thank you enough for you showing up at the time that you did. It was amazing, and I hope you've seen the growth that's happened because I felt it as a result of interacting with you on a regular basis for that time. So I have nothing but love. If I could hit that heart right now and that wow face, I would do it every single time. But here's the deal, Jane. This is why this is called the Golden Mike Live. Um, so I'm going to go into a coaching mode. We're going to go into a little visioning exercise, if that's okay. And I
Okay.
think we did this. I think this might have been, we did this once in your group. And that's why I stuck with it because we had so much fun with it. So I don't know if you remember this, but I
I
want you,
do.
you do.
I
So
do
I want you,
remember this.
yeah.
I remember being terrified because I was like, oh, what would I say? What would
I
I
totally
say?
forgot about it. But I want you to imagine now there's a golden mic that's coming down from that wonderful ceiling there in Illinois, and it's stopping in front of you. And that golden mic, can you believe we're doing this right now? That golden mic translates into every single language all across the world for 2 minutes. Jane Anderson, the world is going to be listening to what it is that you want to tell them. So, Jane Anderson, your golden mic is live now.
2 things. Number 1, how many people does it take to make a difference? Just one. You. And so I invite you to go out and make the biggest contribution in the world that you can, wherever that is, no matter how big or small that is, wherever you are right now. I invite you to use your strengths and go out and contribute the best that you can, wherever you can. Number 2, as leaders, and we're all leaders of one sort or another, right? We lead our families, teams, organizations, we lead our lives. We're all leaders in one sense. Part of our role is to find ways to help other people around us find opportunities to use their strengths so that we can share this wisdom and create a ripple effect. And so those are the 2 things that I would invite people to do.
Anderson, my coach, my love, my facilitator. Hold up that hand right now. Now I want you to drop that golden mic like it's hot. You just delivered a message shot around the world, Jane Anderson. This has been the Golden Mic 86 with your boy Marc Cordon and your girl Jane Anderson. Here's the final question that I have for you. Remember to share this out, by the way, live, or if you're watching the replay. If you're feeling good and you're living to your fullest purpose right now, what is your responsibility to change history for the better? I'm your boy Marc. This is Jane. We are shutting off the golden mic because it's Thursday and we're going to spend time with the actual world. So we're going to get off of social media now. I hope you do the same and you spend some time with your family. Terry, you made it in time just to be a nominee for a possible book from Jane. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Bye, y'all.
Thank you, Marc. You're amazing. Bye, everyone.
Takes one to know one, Jane.